Hello and welcome to the April 19th edition of This Week in South Carolina in Session. I'm Gavin Jackson outside of a very windy state house here in Columbia. Well, if you blinked, you might have missed it because both the House and Senate wrapped up business today rather quickly. They did it with, they conducted business for about an hour or under so and adjourned around noon today. So not much activity on the House and Senate floor. You remember on Wednesday they did go very long, so it wasn't too unexpected for them not to stay long today. But we did see movement outside of the chambers today. In a House subcommittee, we saw movement over a bill sponsored by Senator Vincent Shaheen. He's a Camden Democrat, and this bill has gained even more weight since it's been a timely bill because it deals with preventing drones from flying within 500 feet of a South Carolina prison. This gains some momentum because it's already passed the Senate, but it's getting even more attention now because in light of the situation that happened over at Lee Correctional Institution on Sunday when 7 inmates were killed and 22 were injured at that maximum security facility in Bishopville. Now, we're not directly blaming drones for this, but drones have been known to drop in contraband like cell phones and other items into South Carolina prisons, and that's actually why this bill is going forward, because we did see the Director of Department of Corrections, Brian Sterling, push Shaheen to get this bill going, and we're going to hear some more from him about that. Also, in that same committee, we saw Senator McLeod, who's a Democrat from Richland County, see her bill moving also through the subcommittee process, and that deals with the disturbing schools law that's already on the books in South Carolina. Her bill would actually refine that law and exempt current students from being prosecuted and arrested under that law. Now, you might remember the 2015 incident at Spring Valley High School here in Richland County, in which a school resource officer violently removed a student from her desk because she failed to heed orders from a teacher to put away her cell phone. Well, that whole incident prompted a lot of debate about the overly broad bill, which can really let any student get arrested. Basically, any student can get arrested if they are found in disrupting the school in a very broad way. So we heard from two parents actually whose son was actually arrested under the confines of this law, and also a law professor and Senator McLeod herself. But first, we're going to start off with the testimony from Senator Shaheen. It's very quick testimony just about what his bill would do and what the need is for that bill that would prevent drones from flying within 500 feet of a South Carolina state prison. Let's start right now.
There might not be any more important bill before the body at this time than this bill. The goal of the bill is to keep drones from flying, unauthorized drones from flying over prisons. Here's what we know. We know that currently there are drones being used by criminals to drop contraband in prisons. We do know that our prisons are fighting a constant battle against contraband by inmates. We do know that our guards are at risk, and anything we can do to lessen that risk, we need to do. The reason I introduced this bill, frankly, was because Director Brian Sterling approached me a year or two ago and mentioned the ongoing problems they were having and this new technology that was being used by criminals to infiltrate the space.
So the only time that students would be arrested under disturbing schools is if the student is expelled or suspended and comes back onto school property to do harm to classmates, teachers, administrators, or others, or if the student threatens to do harm to others or threatens to blow up the school or shoot up the school. So those are the only two times that a student would be arrested under the new disturbing schools bill if it becomes law.
Our existing disturbing schools statute is incredibly broad. It criminalizes adolescent misbehavior which disturbs a school, quote, in any way. I've studied and written about similar statutes in other states. At least 20 other states have similar statutes. They're problematic in their own ways as well, but none are as broad as South Carolina's. And in South Carolina, disturbing schools is actually a more serious charge than other misdemeanors. Simple assault, for instance, gives a 17-year-old a maximum of 30 days in jail, while disturbing schools provides for a max of 90 days. The essential problem is that the existing statute's broad language does not adequately distinguish between normal adolescent misbehavior, which requires discipline at school and at home, and behavior that's so bad that it requires a law enforcement and juvenile justice intervention. The good news is that in the aftermath of the Spring Valley incident, the number of disturbing schools referrals to family court dropped significantly. But they still accounted in the most recent year where we have data, they still amounted to the 5th most frequent charge in our family court, 652 cases in 2016 to 17. And that's down from where it used to be. It used to be the 2nd most frequent charge. It's a welcome change, but not nearly enough. And unless the statute changes, those numbers may increase again, especially as memory of the Spring Valley incident fades.
My son was at PE class. He was playing football. He caused a fumble. Another young man he was playing with did not like it. He punched my son. My son turned to get away from him. The other boy pulled him by his shirt, wrapped his shirt around, and began punching my son. My son punched him back in order to get away. 5 other young men jumped on my son's back and began beating him. He was able, luckily, to get away. The principal walks up to him, introduces herself, and says, "Mr. Still, your son has been in a fight. He has been handcuffed and arrested and taken to the sheriff's department." 11 years old. He was handcuffed behind his back and taken to the sheriff's department. He has a criminal juvenile record for defending himself over a fumbled football. He not only was arrested, he not only has a criminal juvenile record, he was suspended for 3 days, missed school, was ridiculed when he returned. Then he's on a behavior plan where he is watched like a hawk constantly for nothing. A good student, an 11-year-old child. This law has to be changed.
And both of those bills are now before the full House Judiciary Committee. They'll likely take those up next week when they meet, and that could be on the floor as early as midweek next week. So with 9 days left in the legislative session, that's pretty key to seeing that movement happen right now, because it's only a matter of time. We're not going to see too much movement on these bills because there are only so many days left, legislative working days left, until May 10th, which is sine die, the last day of the legislative session in 2018. After sine die on May 10th, all bills are dead for the year, and lawmakers will have to reintroduce them in a new 2-year legislative session that begins next January. But we also did see, wanted to keep you updated on one thing we saw that actually came out of the Senate yesterday. You remember S954, that bill reduces SCE&G customers' rates by 13%, basically reduces that 18% nuclear surcharge that every customer is paying on their monthly bill for the failed VC Summer nuclear project, reduces it from 18% to 5%. Now, I talked with some leaders over in the House today, and they didn't really give me too much indication one way or another about what they're going to plan on doing when they get that bill back. Because remember, all the House lawmakers, they voted in favor, overwhelmingly in favor, to get rid of that 18% entirely. The Senate instead decided to go to 5% because, according to a study they had commissioned, it showed that SCANA, the parent company of SCE&G, could withstand such a cut and could afford to withstand such a cut. So it's going to be interesting to see if there's any need for a conference committee, if the House chooses not to agree with that Senate amendment, or if they go along with what the Senate has proposed, which would reduce rates again for SCE&G customers by 13%. Now, this is a temporary fix until the end of the year, when the Public Service Commission can better understand and better come to terms with the situation surrounding SCE&G and the Dominion deal, which is also a factor in this. But we've also heard from the Governor Henry McMaster, who has said that he doesn't want anything other than zero. He will veto any bill that does anything other than zero. So that would also be a little contentious. And zero, why we don't go to zero is because it is kind of a tricky number to get to, especially because there might be some legal challenges as a result of that, and also because the Senate has also shown that study that shows that SCE&G can actually handle their rates being cut by 13%. So there's a little bit of give and take here. It's unclear which way we're going to go, but expect to see some movement on S954 in the House next week. And stay with us because we'll be here covering that for you next week, every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, live at 7 p.m. on SCE&Tv's Facebook page, our YouTube page, and my Twitter account. That's where I give you great video recaps of everything that happens up here at the State House on a given day. You know, not everyone is able to cover the State House like the SCE&TV can do for you. And we go a little bit beyond the sound bites and the quick clips and give you the full experience, the full understanding about what is actually happening both on the Senate House floor and also on the committees as well. So you can also listen to us on South Carolina Public Radio every day when we give you the news, and on State House Week, which is on South Carolina Public Radio. That's when Russ McKinney gives you a recap of what happened up here at the State House every Friday. So make sure to tune in on Fridays especially. You can also watch I keep calling him Doctor, it's just Charles Bierbauer on Friday evenings on SCE&TV for This Week in South Carolina. That airs at 7:30 every Friday. He gets the newsmakers on his show every week, and it's always an informative 30-minute show that you can watch on every SCE&TV station in the state of South Carolina. And of course, you can listen to the South Carolina Lead podcast, in which I talk to reporters up here from the State House who cover the top issues, and we go beyond the headlines. We get some more in-depth about the top issues facing lawmakers and the state. So you can find that podcast on SC Public Radio's website, as well as your podcast app on your iPhone or whatever you find podcasts. Again, that's South Carolina Lead, spelled L-E-D-E. I'm Gavin Jackson for SCE&TV at the State House in Columbia.